friends and fellow bibliophiles, and welcome back to Cats and Novel Adventures. Today is a wrap-up video, and I am sharing everything I read in the month of January. My reading life in 2024 got off to a phenomenal start, especially if you compare it to last year. Back in January of 2023, I completed one book. That is not the case for January 2024. I completed 6 books, 5 short stories, and 2 poems. Yes, you heard that correctly. I read 2 poems. It's not the genre I normally reach for, but I enjoyed both poems that I read. So let's look at how I did with the reading as far as the ratings go, because overall, loved everything that I chose to read, and even the ones that didn't rate as high, still glad that I read them. So out of the 6 books, I had 1 3-star, 1 3.5 star, 2 4 stars, and 2 5 stars. When it came to my short stories, I had 1 3-star, no 4 stars, and 4 5 stars. Well, it wasn't really that hard to get 5 stars for the short stories that I read, at least for those 4, because they were written by Edgar Allan Poe, and you cannot go wrong with reading Poe. Now, I did not rate the poems. I think it's kind of hard to rate a poem, but they were really great. I think the reason that I did so well is that I participated in 2 readathons. I started off the month of January with Winterween, which is hosted by Gabby at Gabby Reads, and I read 3 books that I really enjoyed. And I did a week-long vlog, so please check that out if you want to hear more in detail about how I felt about these books. But I just want to show you which ones that I read. And the first one is in a new series by R.L. Stine called House of Shivers, and it is Scariest Book Ever. I'll just give you a little secret here. It is not the scariest book ever. It was enjoyable enough, but it was not my favorite Goosebumps book. But I'm going to continue with the series because I already got the 2nd book, and the cover on that one is really great. And then the next book that I read that I really enjoyed, it was creepy, perfect for the winter season, and that is The Shuddering by Anaya Alborn. I really enjoyed this. There is a lot of mystery, there's suspense, and creepy creatures. So really, really perfect for the winter season. And then my last book that I absolutely loved and is a favorite for January is Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery, and this is by Bram. Love it. Wonderful story. It has to do with witchcraft. It has fairy tale elements. It's more like a dark fantasy to me than a horror novel, but there are some horrific elements to it. So I would highly recommend, if you like horror or dark fantasy, check out Slewfoot as well as The Shuddering. And also, if you are a fan of Goosebumps, I would recommend reading the new series, House of Shivers. The other week-long readathon that I participated in was my own. I created the NeverMore Readathon, a week with Edgar Allan Poe, in celebration of his birthday, which is on January the 19th. I had a great time. I vlogged my week, so please check out that vlog for the activities that I got up to, as well as more detail about what I read. I also had a live discussion of the group read, which was The Telltale Heart and The Black Cat, and I was joined by the lovely Jen at Literary Love. I will leave a link for that discussion as well in the description box if you want to check that out. We had a great discussion. And then also I got up to sprints with my friend Lauren at Happy Haunts Library. I really appreciate both of them for joining me on this readathon. So let's get into what I read. I started off with The Man Who Was Poe by Avi. This is a historical middle grade fiction story. It is suspenseful. There were moments where it kind of lagged and was a little slow, but it's okay because the mystery was there. There was enough suspense that it kept me reading. And what I really loved is that Edgar Allan Poe was a character in this novel. Now let's talk about the short stories. So I read out of two collections. I read out of His Hideous Heart. This is edited by Dahlia Adler. This book has not only the original stories by Edgar Allan Poe, but also the retellings. So for The Mask of the Red Death, loved it, 5 stars. I read Red. That was the retelling, and that one was by Hilary Monahan. It was enjoyable enough. It was not my most favorite of the retellings that I read. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but still worth a read. And then I also read The Telltale Heart, 5 stars, and the retelling was called Happy Days, Sweetheart, and that was by Stephanie Kewen, and that one was a 5-star read. It was very enjoyable, more in modern times, set in high school, so really enjoyed that one as well. And then out of my Edgar Allan Poe complete stories and poems, I ended up reading The Black Cat, 5 stars, and then I read the 2 poems. I read The Bells as well as Sonnet Silence. And I listened to them as well as reading them with my eyeballs. And I'm going to tell you, it really makes a difference if you listen to them. Both of the versions that I listened to were wonderful and just really very atmospheric. Before I move on, I want to mention that I watched 2 episodes of The Fall of the House of Usher, which is a Netflix series created by Mike Flanagan. Really enjoyed it. It's very well done. So many references to Poe's stories and poetry. The episodes are even named after some of his stories, as well as referencing The Raven. The characters in the series are named after characters from his stories. I just think it's well done. If you are a Poe fan, I think you would enjoy it. Very dark, very atmospheric, and I can't wait to finish the rest of the series. And I just want to also say again, thank you to everyone that participated in my first NeverMore Readathon. I plan to do it again next year. I really enjoyed getting my Poe on. In addition to those 2 readathons, I also participated and co-hosted in a month-long readathon called the Mardi Gras Readathon, which was created by Laurie at Books, Ink, and Paper. I was very excited that she asked me to participate and host with her. The fun thing about this readathon is it took place during the carnival season. So part of it is in January, part of it is in February. We had a bingo board, and these are the 2 prompts that I fulfilled during the month of January. Since I read The Mask of the Red Death for the NeverMore Readathon, I decided to count it for the prompt of ball or elegant event. For the prompt of set in France, I read The Little French Bistro by Nina George. This was my first book by Nina George, but it certainly will not be my last. It is a literary fiction, contemporary romance. I think it's an uplifting story about self-discovery. We follow the character Marianne. She happens to be in her 60s, and she is in an unhappy marriage. She has been married to her husband for 41 years unhappily. And when she and her husband travel to Paris to spend the evening, she makes a drastic decision that ultimately changes the trajectory of her life. This is a well-written story. The descriptions of the coastal areas and the countryside of Brittany, France are phenomenal. It makes me want to pack a suitcase, hop on a plane, and spend a month over there in France. It just sounds absolutely lovely. The characters are very intriguing. They are likable. They're believable, with the exception of Marianne's husband. He's a turd, in my opinion, and I don't blame Marianne one bit for not wanting to be married to him. We see a wonderful transformation in Marianne's character from the beginning of the novel till the end of the novel. It's almost like she is a caterpillar that changes into a beautiful butterfly. I also will mention that there is romance, and while I am not the biggest romance fan, I will say that George does the romantic elements tastefully, and I did not mind it at all. And I think it's because it's more of a mature romance that's going on. Keep in mind, Marianne is in her 60s. There are some melancholy undertones with some hopeful and humorous overtones. I really do think this is a story about loss and love, about finding out who you truly are and what you really want out of life, and then do you have the courage to go after what you really want? This was a 5-star read for me. My last January read is Sky Song by Abby Elphinstone. I read this for the Cozy Cottage Book Club. It is a middle grade fantasy with fairy tale elements set against a wintry background. This is the story about the kingdom of Erkenwald that has been taken over by an evil ice queen who wants eternal life. And the way she can possess eternal life is by stealing the voices from the people of the kingdom. And she has them imprisoned, many of them, at least the ones she could find, in her castle. And amongst those prisoners is a young girl named Eska. And if she can steal Eska's voice, it will seal the deal. Unfortunately, she's not counting on another character named Flint, who is a young inventor who comes to the castle to rescue his mom. Instead, he rescues Eska. And this throws a monkey wrench in all of the Ice Queen's plans. If you like The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, I think you would like this book because it has similar vibes. We have a cold setting, good versus evil, as well as an adventurous quest. What I really liked about this novel is there are wonderful characters. There is a connection with nature, all aspects, land, sky, and sea. It is well written, and it is about bravery, believing in yourself, friendship, which there's a wonderful friendship that develops between Eska and Flint as they get to know each other. And there's also the theme of speaking up when you see something that is not right. And I do think that's one reason why the Ice Queen wants those voices, because if she can take their voices away from them, she can take their power. But she really misjudges these characters because they have a lot more to them than just their voice. I think that this is a cozy winter read. I will read more by Abby Elphinstone because I really enjoyed her writing. I gave this story 4 stars. Well, friends, that's a wrap on everything I read during the month of January. I really do think I had an incredible start to the new year. I have a new favorite, which is Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery by Bram. And believe it or not, I have another 5-star romance under my belt. I would not have believed that in a million years. How about you? Did you have a good reading month in January? Did you have any favorites? And based on my preferences, did you read anything in January that you think I might like? If so, let me know in the comments below. And as always, I really do appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate you watching. And until our paths cross again, stay amazing and be adventurous.